Some of the world's wealthiest figures are currently in the Swiss town of Davos for the World Economic Forum's meeting that started yesterday. Many online commentators have claimed that the event involves a group of elites manipulating global events for their own gain. According to AP, experts say what was once a conspiracy theory found throughout the internet's underground has now hit the mainstream.
The theme of the meeting in 2020 was called The Great Reset, which envisioned how changes could be implemented to build a more sustainable future. This theme has been referenced by many well-known names, including Fox News' Tucker Carlson and Sandy Hook denier Alex Jones, who largely view the plan as an elite conspiracy to consolidate world power and implement control over society. But Twitter Files journalist Michael Schellenberger tweeted yesterday, spokespersons for the World Economic Forum say the Great Reset, eating insects instead of meat, and you'll own nothing and be happy are conspiracy theories, but they're not. In fact, all of them originated at Davos and from the World Economic Forum's own website. Now, WEF is deleting those, of course. This article that was reportedly on the website in 2016 has since been deleted, says, welcome to 2030, I own nothing, have no privacy, and life has never been better. I wanted to talk about this because, so this is getting the kind of mainstream media spin of, oh, look at all these people criticizing Davos and the World Economic Forum. They're spreading misinformation and conspiracy theories. If you're upset about this, you are yourself a conspiracy theorist. It's all just conspiracies. And yes, if you get into the granular details, are some people saying things about the World Economic Forum, they're not representing its views correctly. I mean, it doesn't even have views. It is a gathering of heads of state and business leaders and influential people from all over the world who have a variety of different agendas and don't internally agree. So there's not one agenda they're putting forth. But some of the things they talk about in terms of environmentalism, in terms of state surveillance, state capacity, the kinds of governments run by these very people, what they'll be able to do to you, the kind of social credit score system, tracking, kind of nudging. It's for your health. It's for your own good. It's a very kind of soft, dystopian progressive. Look, it's not, and so, again, as I said last time we talked about this, some of these ideas might be fine, but it is also fine to be critical of it, to not like that you're not invited, that it's a secret meeting, semi-secret meeting of elites, and you might not like all these policies. Maybe they'll involve outsourcing, and maybe they're too deferential to China's new hegemony, all that stuff. That is fine. It is not a conspiracy theory to object to that, to speak out against
not.
it.
And like, I think it is healthy for, look, I remember not so long ago living in a world where there was kind of more an open embrace of and an almost admiration for a certain kind of elitism. I think coming out of the Bush era and into the Obama era, there was this idea that we're going to leave like the dumb Neanderthals behind and that all the problems in the world could be solved by the right technocratic brain that went to Harvard and attended Davos, right? And that was part of the appeal of Obama. And I think the Obama years disabused a lot of people of the notion that that was going to be the fix. However, I think the part of it that's a little frustrating from a left perspective is, more people should be interrogating why it is that the kinds of solutions that are coming out of Davos do seem so dystopian for many of us. For those of us who believe that there is a climate crisis, who understand that there have been famines and droughts as a consequence of environmental change, and also because of war driving immigration across the country, all kinds of displacements, a third of Pakistan underwater this year, wildfires in California, that these are things that are happening, whatever you want to attribute them to, say, well, obviously we have to do some planning about how to maintain resources, how to grow enough food to feed the world, and all these other kinds of things. The war in Ukraine obviously impacted grain supplies, et cetera. Now, why is it that the solutions always seem to be we all eat bugs? Well, part of it is that the changes that would be more equitable and less severe for the broader public come at the expense of the very, very wealthy. Are you going to be able to graze endless rounds of beef so that all the people who eat a steak every day for lunch can continue to eat a steak every day for lunch? Or are we going to turn some of that pasture land into agricultural land so that the rest of us don't have to eat bugs? And these are the kind of trade-offs that aren't being discussed in the pernicious motives of corporations and people who are very, very elite, who want to aggregate all of the wealth at the very, very top without making any sacrifices themselves, while we're all at the back of the Snowpiercer train eating bug gelatin. That is the real problem here. And I hope that some of this stuff moves from, it's just crunchy green liberals who want you to eat bugs. No, the people at that conference aren't crunchy green liberals. They're people who know that there's a limit on their economic oil investments because these are not infinite sources.
They have crunchy liberal social views. And,
sure.
and
well, even worse
enrich
than that.
me corporate economic
Yeah,
views.
yes, but even worse, I think that some of them don't even have those social views, but they do use those social views to launder their bad practices. And this has been happening with the weaponization of identity politics. This is happening by putting a woke flag on a lot of things that are really pernicious. But again, I don't think it's not the wokeness that's the problem. It's not black people or trans people or gay people or anything that's the problem. It's people like this who exploit the existence of those groups and legitimate historical persecution that they've had to endure to launder a bunch of same old corporate practices. To that end, the charity organization Oxfam, which focuses on alleviating global poverty, made a plea to the leaders at Davos that the number of billionaires should be reduced by half by 2030 in a report titled Survival of the Richest. Twitter CEO Elon Musk weighed in on the WEF's plan to incorporate, quote, environmental, social, and governance criteria into its investment strategy, quipping that the S stands for Satanic. What do you make of this? Is it just a billionaire being big mad that billionaires have a target on their back, or does he have a point here?
I don't know why it's like satanic. It's that is a kind of a type of criticism I see from some on the right that to impute to the elites that it's all like it's literal Satanism or literal. Hillary Clinton is slurping down, right? Eating children, drinking the blood of children, that kind of thing. Like, no, just say. Then people don't take you seriously when you say that because that sounds crazy and is like 99% untrue. Of course, there was actually a Jeffrey Epstein cavorting with rich and powerful people and actually engaged in sex trafficking, sexual abuse of underage. Like every now and then, the what sounds like, well, that's too crazy. Your criticism that's too far out there is true. Every now and then it is true, but mostly no. They're not sacrificing children in pagan rituals. They are discussing policies that they think would be good for society and would especially be good for them and making more money for their corporations and enriching the governments represented. And some of those policies might be worth implementing, but we all get to decide. America is a democratic republic where we have elected representatives. We don't have to go along with what they say in Davos. It should be told to the American people, and they get to weigh these policies, and it should be what's good for everyone, not just what's good for the elites.
Let's interrogate the idea that we're a democracy, because based on polls...
Ideally, that's what I'm not saying we actually are.
But here's the issue. Obviously, some edict that comes out from Davos or from Oxfam, nobody's following. These are all advisory or whatever. But the conversation about how many billionaires there should be. So notably, the number of billionaires that exist has gone up exponentially. There were 500 new billionaires minted during the 2020 economic crisis, which a lot of people found to be disturbing given how much the rest of the world was suffering. There's a heightened awareness of the fact that there is a relationship between how many people are poor and how many people are rich, and these things are happening in tandem. And when you look at root causes, there are a lot of things that people point to. For example, the average CEO pay versus worker pay has exploded over the last 40 years or so. In the middle of the last century, in the 1950s, 60s, it was something like a 1-to-30 ratio. The earnings of a CEO versus a worker. Now it's closer to 1-to-300. I think it's actually edging closer to 1-to-400 ratio. We've seen jobs shipped overseas. We've seen workers get a smaller share of the pie. We've seen union density lower, and so workers can't advocate for the wages that they used to be able to earn. And so you're getting more and more wealth aggregated at the top. Now, that's no surprise then, maybe, that a wealth tax, when polled, is very, very popular. We don't get a wealth tax in terms of legislation, however, perhaps because people like Elon Musk and other billionaires who give enormous amounts to these presidential campaigns — Joe Biden took more billionaire money than anybody else in the race, including Donald Trump — have no incentive to actually do anything about having the number of billionaires, or at least limiting the idea that billionaires are able to extract so much wealth at a period of crisis.
Yeah, I mean, here you and I will probably have some real disagreements. I don't have any desire to have fewer billionaires like in a vacuum. Like the number of billionaires there are doesn't bother me. If people are making billions of dollars legitimately, not with subsidies, not with cheats, and there's a lot of that going on, and we both agree on getting rid of that. If they're doing it by providing value to society, by providing food and clothing and services that people want to buy, and that's how they get rich, that's fine with me. You probably disagree with this. I don't think just because more people have a lot more, sometimes that means other people have less. Doesn't always. I mean, the global poverty rate has fallen over the last 100 years dramatically, right? It hasn't, largely because of the third world getting better, et cetera. maybe there's been some stagnation in our own country or in the developed world. By and large, the period of extreme growth in the billionaire class has not coincided with massive global poverty.
It takes
It's
very
been the
little
opposite.
to raise someone who's living on $1 a day to $2 a day. It doesn't require that much distributional change to bring the because things are just so bad, to bring the very bottom up out of poverty. I don't mean to minimize that accomplishment.
Twice as much income is huge.
Right. I don't mean to minimize that accomplishment, but that doesn't undermine the reality that the wealth aggregation that we've seen over the last 50 years is the direct result of economic policy. People didn't just start inventing cooler products that consumers wanted to consume more. There are real economic underpinnings to how this kind of thing happens. So again, if everyone could be a billionaire, obviously I'd love that. If everybody could be,
but also,
there could be
there are
a lot of
billionaires under feudalism, right? Where everyone is. I mean, a couple people have land, but don't have anything like the opulent wealth of today's billionaires. And everyone else is really poor, and society's terrible.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's actually a very good example. I don't know how many gold coins or whatever equals $1 billion, but those huge aggregations of wealth among very, very few people and families is exactly the system that many people like, Yanis Varoufakis calls it a techno-feudalism, I believe. The system that we are heading to right now with these huge tech giants aggregating all of this wealth and power that they're using per the Twitter files to control democracy, to advance their own financial interests, to suppress criticism of China if your business is there, as people have accused Elon Musk of doing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's worth discussing, and I'm glad Davos is opening up that particular conversation. I just hope that it gets a little deeper than accusing people of, drinking kid blood and wanting to put.
What's your favorite? What's your favorite bug dish?
I don't think I've ever had a bug.
I don't think I have either.
Lobster. I mean, it's kind of a bug if we really want to talk about it. But you guys aren't ready for that.
An arthropod, right? It's a crustacean. And insects are a different thing. Remember the classification?
All right. Every insect I am fly bee. I was a bio major. All right. We'll have more rising after this.